students that are working in our institute with persistent organic pollutants, I just made a selection of the presentation of Rodrigo in last dioxin conference in San Antonio. And also I get some information that was produced by Larissa. And one part of the work of Giselle. We have also another student working in the Amazon, and the one that finished this year, that worked a lot for this meeting on farm and fish. So, but I decided here to present just a small place, so I could not put all the work of all of my students and now collaborators. Regarding the work of Rodrigo, this is important when we decided, so let's talk about this collaboration with Canada. So Rodrigo went to Canada with a sandwich fellowship from CNTQ. But Rodrigo is working with our group for more than 10 years now. And all his work is related to atmospheric deposition. This first slide here is just to where we deployed some passive air sampling. The Serra dos Órgãos, near Rio de Janeiro. If it's sun in Rio, you can see the mountains near the bay. And in Santa Catarina state, the place where Brazil is very cold. -17 once was measured in the top of this mountain. So that's why we choose, in order to see a little bit of the work of Frank, Tom Herner, saying that cold trough deposition, we decided to work with Rodrigo in these areas. The atmospheric transport to these mountains, and we, with the help of people from Canada, were able to measure some, not only the legacy persistent organic pollutants, but also some current use pesticides. I cannot explain in detail, but just to have a glance at what he's going to present in a couple of months. This is Serra dos Órgãos, this is São Joaquim. So, in São Joaquim, in the top of this mountain, sometimes you can have this almost Europe situation. But both these places are more or less related to our Atlantic forest environment, where it's a nice hot spot of biodiversity. We try to deploy in an altitudinal gradient, coming through to the plateau near the mountains and progressively installing these sampling devices to the top of these mountains. Basically, we decided to use the device that Tom Herner has sent to us, but also try to use our own homemade systems using bromeliads for mercury, atmospheric deposition, and the polyurethane foam not covered, so just to try to get total deposition, including the particles. What we, just to see, high atmospheric levels of endosulfan were found in both national parks. So just in Rio de Janeiro and also in Santa Catarina state, indicating that you can see endosulfan, chlorpyrifos, some HCH, DDTs, heptachlor, and dioxin. taking in account that we have near this Serra dos Órgãos a lot of production of vegetables, probably most of this come from these activities. In Santa Catarina, we have a mixed agriculture production, a little bit different, but more or less the same situation. So if you Serra dos Órgãos, São Joaquim, Serra dos Órgãos, São Joaquim. So the levels are quite comparable. As we know, endosulfan, Brazil is situated in a total quantity for the period of late 50s to 2002, around 33 kilotons of this kind of pesticides. So indicating that we are in the top 3 positions for this pesticide. More recently, around the same quantity was just imported in a kind of rate of usage of around 1.5 tons per year. The endosulfans showed more concentrated in these passive air samples in summer. And this amount sometimes can be correlated with the altitudinal location of the deployment and the PUF sites. So we have a positive correlation between the endosulfan and the altitude. So cold trapping for endosulfan is a clear indication from this work. However, chlorpyrifos only appear to be, at least with this behavior, in tropical mountains, so Rio de Janeiro. In subtropical mountains, maybe a little bit different, probably reflecting the local sources. That is a mix, it's a different situation, but very much more the contribution from agriculture in this place than in the area near Serra dos Órgãos. Chlorpyrifos is heavily used in Brazil with more than 70 commercial brands registered. And it's used in, for instance, this is coffee, but also to protect cows from parasites and skin insects. So, in conclusion, what we have in these areas can reflect the heavy users of pesticides in our country. And taking in account that these remote or elevated sites, we could imagine to continue this work in other mountains of the country, near São Paulo or going to the south, or even in mountains in the center of the country, or mountains even in the Amazon. As maybe you do not know, the highest mountain in Brazil is in the Amazon state. The work of Larissa received the prize in the Dioxin Conference in Beijing. And it's a collaboration between our group and the group of Begonha in Madrid. And this is a very nice example of how, using this kind of projects, collaborative projects, we could make a nice work using the brown boobies, analyzing the eggs of these fish-eating birds along the Brazilian coast. Just a short introduction. DDT, thousands of tons have been used in Brazil since 95 restrictions, and finally forbidden last year by a federal law.
Just to reflect that we have been working with Ricardo Barra also to help to organize or to improve our knowledge on the fate of such toxicants in our region. But for those islands, at least one report from São Paulo group, this is Hof Holland Weber, but not our Holland Weber. He's the head of laboratory in the Oceanographic Institute of São Paulo. He went for the first time to these small islands in the middle of the ocean that we went in 2006 until 2009. This is the brown booby. The same species live along our coast, near Rio and near the Bahia littoral zone. And it produces eggs, at least 2 eggs, and when we collect 1 egg, it will raise the other chick. And they eat lots of fish. So we collect eggs from St. Peter and St. Paul archipelago, 1,000 kilometers from the coast of northeastern coast. This is northern hemisphere. Just a rock with a navy and lamp. The other is the archipelagos of Abrolhos, more near the Bahia coast. And the third area is just in front of Rio de Janeiro. So 3 situations, different contamination patterns could be observed. Just how we collect the eggs, just eggs that go to the bottom means that we could see if there's a chick or how the development of the bird inside the egg. And then we made substrate extractions, purified these extracts with alumina and fluoresil. And just to see the difference, we could find very low amounts of PCBs in São Pedro, São Paulo, a little bit more in Abrolhos, and the most contaminated site, as expected, near Rio de Janeiro. This is true for DDT. But what's interesting here is that in São Pedro, São Paulo, we only get the metabolite. But in Rio, half seems to be fresh DDT. And this may indicate that DDT was used in our region. And this is true because we worked 10 years ago in an area in Rio de Janeiro that used DDT against leishmaniasis, a tropical disease. These levels are not as high as other publications. And just 1 egg for cagarras, very high, more or less half of the amounts that can cause some problems in birds. If you use at least 7 of these PCB congeners to calculate the TAQ, we see that St. Peter and St. Paul, the lowest one, Abrolhos, less than 1 picogram tech, and cagarras, something more related to 60. But it's less than other parts of the world using similar species. So São Pedro, São Paulo, as I told you before, only DDT, DDE, a little contribution for fresh DDT in cagarras, in Abrolhos, and this half and half division near Rio de Janeiro. For PCBs, the pattern are more or less the same, with a small increase for the lower chlorinated indicator PCBs in cagarras. So this is very near the source. Probably here we are a little bit far from any sources, and São Pedro, São Paulo, that remote island in the middle of the ocean. It's more or less the same information you get in this graph. Regarding the diet of this fish, in São Pedro, São Paulo, most of this colony will rely on migratory fish, just like this flying fish. PCBs and DDTs in the same graph, indicating that the contribution is more or less indicate that PCBs in total are more represented in the 3 areas. So that's, we now move to the third example from our work, that, as I said before, is just 3 examples of this kind of cooperation. So the first cooperation with Canada, the second cooperation with Spain, and this cooperation now we are going to see with Germany from München. And we select this work of this PhD work of Gisele as the third example. So, since the beginning of the 90s, the radioisotope laboratory is working with mercury contamination in the Amazon. We decided, with the help of Dr. Karl Werner Schramm, to see if we could find organic pollutants in these samples. Because human hair can be a potential additional tool to understand the fate, and is, of course, a non-invasive sampling technique. The Madeira River Basin is the area we collect these hair samples. We just select the hair from women in this study. This is Madeira River. This place we have historical use of DDT against malaria vectors, and the same approach the mercury group we follow, trying to get hair only from the occipital region and take it to the lab for analysis. The lab, in this case, in the München laboratory. The collection, Ronaldo. The cleanup followed the normal approach of the Karl Werner lab with different quality assurance and quality control protocols, using accelerated soil extraction and open column for with silica and C18 before high resolution mass spectrum determinations. The communities we selected were Puluzinho Lake in the border of the Madeira River, Abunã near Rondônia state, and Vista Alegre also in Rondônia state. And they have lipids ranging from 4 to 5.2 in the hair. All samples we could found DDT and its metabolites in a ppm range and level, suggesting fresh DDT in this area. So, the profile indicating that in this region, probably because of the massive usage of DDT, people are receiving fresh DDT. Officially, this is not reported for the Ministry of Health. They say that they stopped using DDT around 2000. Just to have a more or less basic statistic on this, para and orthopara, and then DDE as the third. Para DDT is the first one, para DDE the second one, and then followed by the other metabolites. If we compare with other places, like one work from Kovaci, made in Romania, our results are higher than this. And this reflects that our situation is a little bit similar or a little above the results you can find in the former socialist republics in Eastern Europe. So this is what we can see if we compare. Now Brazil receives the gold medal. But other pesticides could be found in these hair samples. And this is an indication that probably other chlorinated products are in use in these houses or in these communities. Probably related to wood treatment products. Remaining in this area, wood products are very important to them. In the case of PAHs, phenanthrene was the most important molecule that we found in this whole 16 PAH from EPA. Phenanthrene so represents more than 1/3 of the whole contamination, followed by fluorantine and then pyrene. And for instance, if you look for benzopyrene, there's very few. Now it's time for Gisele to finish her thesis, making probably some ratios on that, trying to indicate it's more petrogenic or it's combustion. And of course, probably the hypothesis I have that combustion sources are most important because they live and they depend on burning of wood for cooking and so on. In terms of PCBs, this is that pattern that we found. The lowest chlorinated ones, much more represented in the whole amount of these samples. In terms of monoortho PCBs, those that would indicate a different part of toxicity, 118 is the most important congener that we found, followed by PCB 1.5. But the levels are relatively low if we compare to the other ones. And the non-ortho PCBs, those like 77, 126, for instance, it's probably the most dangerous one, but it's very low levels. And the 77 up to 95% we could find. In conclusions, DDT very high, but indicating that this pig population eat maybe half a kilo of fish per day. PCBs are very low, of course, no light, no industrialization nearby. But this is now is going to change because the Madeira River are being, 2 hydroelectric dams are being built just near Porto Velho. A new road will be constructed just beside Poluzinho Lake. And we know that part of this energy will be used to develop the country, the state, and more industries. Probably this is progress running towards the jungle. And the agricultural practice, the burning of wood, may probably explain the results of PAH that we observe. And we will thank all of your attention and the help of Munchen groups, Mount Sinai, and all the population of the Poluzinho Lake. Thank you very much.
Very nice, very interesting stuff. What I want to question about or ask about, so you find these increasing air concentrations of aerosol in altitude. And Ricardo and I, we found the very same thing in Chile. And it didn't matter whether it was in Patagonia, or in northern Chile, or in central Chile. When you went up with altitude, the aerosol concentrations went up. And I mean, it boggles my mind. I don't really understand continent go. South America, as you go up with altitude and sulfur goes up. So the only explanation I have is really that it's re-evaporating from what has been deposited. So you said you also had a bulk deposition chamber located right next to your bathrooms. Do you have results for that yet? And do you also see higher deposition?
That's why I call my students to help me. Advancing of science is really our objective here. And I just forget to mention that our Society for Advancement of Science was created in 1948. And in 1949, the first number of the Ciência e Cultura that is known, you cannot
United Nations English
cite nothing, but it's quite important because you can find a lot of nice works here. And in the first number, this number that we just republished, I could find, with the help of Olaf Malm, of course, have you seen that? In 1949, the Nobel Prize of 48. Who won the Nobel Prize? Paul Miller. And now, Paul Miller receiving his Nobel Prize. And here you see, it's a miracle. And my father says that Niterói just crossed the bay. When DDT arrived, it was a miracle. Not only the mosquitoes went away, but also the flies, the cockroaches, and everybody was very happy. Not much. The problem they didn't know yet. Probably we have to get the prize away from Nilo. And just to see in terms of, we are doing all of our best to put the students and put everyone in the same boat. But we can't compete. I just received a message from Stuart Arad from Great Britain. He has 12 PhD positions available immediately. And 2 postdoctoral positions available immediately. So, go there. And then come back, of course. I can compete with this.
You mentioned in your presentation that you can use the hair as a short term, but also on long term. It depends on the long hair.
This is for mercury.
Okay.
A long hair can indicate a nice story, just like a core. And in the Amazon, we have some communities. The woman, because of religious beliefs, they do not cut the hair. So you can see, regarding mercury, even the time where she becomes pregnant, because the level of mercury decreases in the hair, and after make the baby and then to nurse it with milk and so on. So it's true. We can make at least nice studies. Now that Antonio, one of our students, are coming back to the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, may be a good indication for further studies relating population, diet, hair, and so on. Everything is possible.